Good afternoon and welcome to the September 26, 2022 meeting of the Orlando City Council. We're going to begin today's proceedings with the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, both led by Commissioner Burns. Commissioner.
All right, thank you, Mayor. May we bow our heads. God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our great city. We come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill, and help us to speak with clarity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service. Father, please guide us so that this meeting can be productive. Let us be effective and decisive. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll and make a determination of quorum, please?
Commissioner Gray,
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Here.
Commissioner Stewart,
Here.
Commissioner Sheehan,
Here.
Commissioner Hill, Commissioner Burns,
Here.
Mayor Dyer.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum with all members present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First item of business is the minutes from the Agenda Review City Council meeting and first budget hearing from September the 12th, 2022. Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. All in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, and so the motion carries. Okay, we don't have any awards, presentations, or recognitions, although we did have a great presentation this morning at workshop on an update on our study of how to move our downtown forward. We'll give you the mayor's update, though. Okay, so I just got a call with senior staff as we continue to track Hurricane Ian. Still don't know exactly where it's going to end up, but it's the full swing of hurricane season now, so we should be prepared to have a direct hit from Ian. Hopefully that won't happen, but you should go ahead and take the opportunity to stay informed and make sure you have the supplies that you need in advance for at least a 48-hour stay without any power. I also want to update you on our outreach efforts for the people of Puerto Rico and the rest of the Caribbean community who were impacted by Hurricane Fiona. Our emergency management and OLA staff have been working with 40 different local organizations to continue to assess the need and connect anybody that needs it with resources here in Orlando. And I know that there's a lot of efforts to send prayers, food, gatherings is more. It'll be October next week, and I want to remind everybody that that is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So one of the ways we'll be supporting that is on October the 6th. We will be wearing purple proud, and lighting the Lake Eola Fountain purple. Also next week is National Night Out on Tuesday, October 4th. So I know that there will be hundreds of parties in and around Orlando and all 6 of your districts. I'm going to go out to some of the award winners. It seems like there's a few that continue to win every year, so hopefully we'll see a few new ones that sneak in. On the agenda, I just have a couple things. Lake Eola Master Plan Design Services is item B8, and it allows us to start moving our master plan forward. Phase 1 includes the design work to replace the park's existing restroom buildings and expand the walkways around the buildings. And then the last thing I would like to mention is we are getting ready to move an iconic Orlando sign that we put up when we renovated the Camping World Stadium on the corner of Tampa and Church. And it's not a very visible site, but it's kind of cool. We used the letters that were on the old scoreboard before we renovated the building and put them on in a linear fashion that's about 30 feet tall. The Expressway Authority is wanting to highlight the interchange at 436 in the beach line and has asked us to have a hand in creating pieces of art. So we're doing a solicitation for that, but we thought, wow, what a great idea. We'll move that Orlando sign so that the thousands of people that are driving into the airport or on the beach line every day can see it. So we will be starting that process and look forward to that. That's all I have. We're going to move to the consent agenda, which is a number of items that are acted upon through a single vote of council. We give each of our commissioners an opportunity to comment on items on the consent agenda, as well as update you on important things happening in their districts. We rotate the order we do that, and Commissioner Burns is first up today.
All right, thank you, Mayor. A couple of Fridays ago, I hosted my annual the Children's Celebrity Golf Tournament at Hawks Landing Golf Club. We were joined by several professional athletes, like the likes of Bo Outlaw and Vince Carter, who both previously played for the Orlando Magic, as well as several community leaders. We had some success, so this year we'll be able to give out more scholarships than we did last year. And a portion of the proceeds will go to support our partners at MBK, My Brother's Keepers. And so just thank you all, my commissioners who supported the golf tournament and everyone who came out. Again, it was a huge success. This past Saturday, I served as the co-host for the 19th Annual Caribbean Health Summit, hosted at the Smith Center. Thank you to Mr. Keith Gooden, Dr. Francois, the Center for Multicultural Wellness and Prevention, and everyone who worked to put on such a great event. We had all types of dental exams, blood pressure checks, prostate exams, so I'm thankful that a lot of the residents in the community came out to take advantage of these resources. And congratulations again to Dr. Francois and her team for such a successful event. And last, I just want to take this moment to congratulate my, I guess I'll say my former police liaison, Officer James West, has been recently promoted to sergeant. So Officer West has been with me since I became commissioner, and I couldn't be happier to see him move up. So Chief Smith, you couldn't have picked a better officer to promote, but you just got to promise me that you'll send me somebody just as good as Officer West. All right. But no, I'm excited for Officer West. He's a great police officer, but a great gentleman. He has a lot to offer, so I'm excited for his next move. And I don't have any comments on the agenda today, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll move to Commissioner Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be brief. A couple of just comments. First of all, I'd like to echo yours on Happy Rosh Hashanah to all of those celebrating the Jewish New Year. Two announcements. A week from tomorrow, as the mayor said, National Night Out. And as a result of redistricting, my list is a lot smaller this year. So I think I can make it to all the events. So looking forward to that and connecting with neighbors. And then finally, a week from this Saturday, October 6th, we have our annual Fall Festival in the Vista Lakes community at Amherst Park. And I invite everybody to come out. It's a great family event from 11 to 2 Saturday. Free food, free games for the kids, free petting zoo, the whole works. So it's a lot of fun. So if you or any of your friends or neighbors live down that way, please come by Amherst Park, and more details are on our website. And so, Mayor, I've got a couple of comments not on the agenda, but later on for some of the PD amendments. So I'll talk about those later. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. On Tuesday, September 13, I went poaching to District 1 and attended a grand opening on behalf of Commissioner Gray and the mayor. Was started as a small dream on the island of Puerto Rico by Don Felipe Perez, has made it all the way to the Central Florida region. So I'm so proud of his accomplishments and his family. This particular one was in District 1, so we're very proud. And yes, I'll be visiting, I guess, District 1 more often because it's pretty good. I look forward to where they will take El Mesón Sandwiches is the name of it. El Mesón. It has a pretty story also behind it. So it's been over 50 years, I guess, in business. On Friday, September 16th, we celebrated the beginning of Hispanic Heritage Month with our annual art exhibition opening reception. We had 26 artists from 9 different countries who dedicated their beautiful painting to showcase their love for our culture. So if you want to see more of this, just go downstairs. You will love it. great exhibition. Thank you to the 20 Hispanic Heritage Committee members for organizing an awesome event led by Mr. Luis Martinez. Great job. On Monday, September 19th, we hosted a community meeting with Greenview at Dover and Oversource West neighborhoods to discuss the Fdot project taking place on Conway Road. Sadly enough, it's one of those issues where the state went on starting something without consulting with the city, so things got a little out of hand. Now I think they're in tune, on tandem working with the city, and hopefully we'll get to fix this. I think Commissioner Sheehan, I think for the next meeting, they are also requesting your presence, so, but I'll let you know. On Saturday, October 8th, we're teaming up with the Englewood Neighborhood Center to host our first Hispanic Heritage Month Festival, to where everybody's invited, please. The event will run from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Englewood Neighborhood Center. We'll have food, field day games like potato sack races, a blow-up obstacle course, more fun for the whole family, to include baseball clinics and domino tournament. So come and join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. And with that, that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me share a couple of quick things. I want to say, especially appreciate District 5 and District 6 wearing red today. A few weeks ago, Edgewater and Jones played. It was another great game, and Edgewater prevailed again. I appreciate you wearing red. It reminds me of the little competition you had with the Mayor of Sacramento. That was made some publicity. I thought, well, it was great. So thank you for living up to your end of the bargain. I appreciate it. I don't have any orange at home. Oh, I have some orange and blue, but not orange and green. But and the inside of your coat is also red too, right, Bakari? Isn't that nice? I did it all. Did it all. I do want to congratulate. I tell you what, we do have some great high schools. That was a great game. I had a chance to also have a little bit of fun with the mayor of Apopka, because Edgewater beat Apopka last Friday night too. And I know that since I'm having a challenging time being a Gator fan this year, but Edgewater's doing great. So let me also mention a couple other things. Our church is doing some work over at the PI wing at Lake Silver Elementary. It's a really neat opportunity for the community to come together. We're working on their handicap playground. It's the only one in all of Orange County, and we're asking the community to come together to help make that workable again. It's been basically under a roof for 5 years without anybody using it, because it needs to be upgraded. So we put some time and energy together to ask the community to come together. I think it's a great benefit to all of our students that are over there. I had an opportunity to represent the mayor and this council over at the opening of the Rothman Orthopedics at Advent Health at the new Innovation Building. It was what a wonderful new complex. Excited about that. The Orlando Neurosurgery will be moving in, I guess, in the course of, I want to say, about 3 or 4 weeks. And there'll be another large grand opening and ribbon cutting for that. So it's really neat to see this develop. And also, Rothman is one of the class acts in the entire country about orthopedics, and I'm glad that they're here. And it was a good opportunity there. Let me share something a little bit more on a sadder note. About 2 weeks ago, we had a lightning strike that occurred in Lake Fairview, hit a boat of middle schoolers in the middle of the lake. 2 of those have passed away, Langston and Gavin. And Mayor, with your permission, I'd like to just take a moment of silence for these two children and their families. This is a tragic thing that occurred in our community, and I'm so grateful for OPD and OFD being there and being on site, showing an incredible amount of compassion, as well as doing a wonderful job in terms of their own service. So let's take a moment, if you don't mind, for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. National Night Out is coming up next week. I've got about 13 parties to get to, so Commissioner Gray is going to be covering a few of my parties for me. I appreciate that, Commissioner Gray. Thank you very much. And it's going to be a great time, and I'm excited about that. We have upcoming meeting is going to be in October for our Edgewater Drive Complete Streets 30% plan. We're trying to finalize the thing. We're almost there, I think. So we'll be getting some information out in the next day or so, assuming that our hurricane doesn't bother us again. So, right, Tanya? So we'll be getting some information out about that, asking the community to come together and look at our 30% plans, give us their input, and then from there, about 6 months from now, maybe about 5 months from now, we'll have our 60% plans, and then follow with 90% plans, and we'll be able to go take it to bid with our Edgewater Drive, part of the Metro Plan project. So I want to just encourage everybody to be there as far as that's concerned. And on the agenda, Mayor, the only comment, I guess, as we mentioned that we moved the Rose Arch the applicant has to be delayed, so that was the only comment that I was going to make today, and all the rest of the comments I've already shared with staff. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll move on to Commissioner Sheehan.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry I missed a workshop this morning, but I was target hardening my house because I've got a gazebo that's got a sail on it, basically, and I knew that's probably going to get picked up, so I advise anybody else, if you've got some things you need to do at your house, you need to go ahead and do that. And I did catch a lot of the workshop on the television, which is nice to be able to do live, and that's probably the 4th iteration I've seen of that plan. I want to say let's get some of those plans done, because it seems like we keep studying the same thing about the two-way streets and different things like that. Sidewalks, these things keep coming up, and I think we need to start getting to where we're implementing some of these plans instead of just, it seems like we keep talking about the same things over and over again, the treescape that's not good for pedestrians, again, we keep studying it. I'd like to see some of the things implemented. I think they're good ideas, great ideas that they're having, but I think we just need to get to the point where we're actually implementing some of those things. I'm very sad to see Kathy Devault leaving the city after 14 years. She's been an absolute hard worker, gem of the city. She's done so much, Mayor. And I don't usually single out employees when they're leaving, but she's someone who's just been so involved in so many amazing things that have happened in this city, and she's going to be greatly missed. But, our loss is UCF's gain. She'll be going over to UCF to work. But, Kathy, you will be missed. You are a rock star. And, and you are always noticed, but I'm glad you're going to be able to move on to a new role in this community. Coming up on November 14th, we're going to be doing the Swan Roundup at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's the same day as the Veterans Day Parade, so we're going to be starting early. So we're going to be rounding up our swans with the Kayak Club, giving them their annual shot. So if anybody's interested in seeing me getting pooped on by a swan, be there on November 14th at 7 a.m. It's very entertaining. So, and there's a lot of us volunteers, but it takes a few of us to get 58 swans rounded up, inoculated, get all their shots and everything like that. So it's actually pretty neat, but we'll be there on the 14th. On the agenda today, item A2, American Ghost Adventures on October 14th and 22nd. They're going to be in Greenwood Cemetery. So we're glad to see that some cool stuff is happening over at the cemetery. I'm also delighted to see the landscape architect services for GAI for implementing some of the issues on the master plan that we talked about at Lake Eola. And that's really all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sheehan. We'll move to Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Good afternoon, everyone. My update is on 9/15. I was privileged enough to be a panelist on a forum that called Arise, Black Women in Business and Politics. It was hosted by Mr. Vaughn Johnson, an executive coach and ecosystem creator. I also joined NFL retiree Jay Barnett, that is a mental health expert and speaker, along with MVP NFL Santonio Holmes, who is focused on mental health also, and Mrs. Maxine Reyes, the founder of Courage and Grace Brands, and she's also a retired Army lieutenant. And we discussed, which I think is a very important topic, not just here in the city of Orlando, which I know this council under Mayor Dyer's leadership is truly focused on, so much so to where we're putting a multitude of resources and millions into mental health. And so I was delighted to be a part of that very important discussion. On 9/17, I was invited also to bring greetings for the Guyanese Diaspora Engagement, where I was honored to stand in for Mayor Dyer and the council to bring greetings to His Excellency, Dr. Mohammed Afram Ali. He is the president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. And Mayor, I presented him with the key to the city that you sent, along with Reginald McGill that presented a proclamation from your office. You know, a mayor and community, when I saw this president, he often reminded me of the leadership we have here in you, Mayor Dyer. He was a people's president, right? Someone that really engaged with his constituents that evening. It was about 1,500 Guyanese folks from the Central Florida community there. And to see this head of a country for hours and hours just be with the people, not standing on the stage, but going down into the masses and talked about the same things you talk about, Mayor. Energy, infrastructure, affordable housing, education, and healthcare. Of course, they have just discovered oil there in Guyana, and over 11 billion barrels a day will be produced once they partner with Exxon and they start to do mass production. But he also started to talk about the same things we talk about here at the City of Orlando, and that is a resilient economy and prosperity for all. And it was just refreshing to see that our leadership and our council is locked in step with the things that people were talking about in all other countries. But I even thought a little bit further, no pressure, Mayor Dyer, that maybe we reach out to him yourself and our executive committee, because of course, you know, they're still in the infancy of all of this, and we have a large Guyanese community and Caribbean community here to where maybe we can be a sister city. And I think we lead the Southeast region, I think, if not the nation to a degree, when we start talking about those pillars that he wants to provide there. Then he want to step further with this resilient and impact for all, where those monies from the oil that they're going to produce, he's going to mimic what they do over in Dubai, where all of the citizens will rise and get a portion of those funds so that they can become sustainable and change the trajectory of those youth lives and the family lives there. So I was quite excited. So thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to step in your post while you were going to Denver trying to find out other best practices for the City of Orlando. And then that Sunday, I was able to join another mayor, Mayor Dimmons, and his team from the Orange County Mayor's Veteran Advisory Council as the keynote speaker at the Orange County Gold Star Mothers and Families Day ceremony, where this Sunday will actually, they will be honored throughout the nation. The fourth Sunday of each September is when they honor the Gold Star moms. So something really, a point on that is when soldiers went off to war, I think it was World War II, families would put a blue star on the doors. And when they would come home, everybody would celebrate it. But for those soldiers that did not come home, they would transfer that blue star into a gold star, and to honor those loved ones who perished serving our great United States Armed Forces. On September 20th, I was able to attend a dual meeting of Lake Dodd and Rock Lake Neighborhood Associations and the Orlando Day Nursery there in Paramore/Creative Village. And we met with the HOA leaders and the residents, along with our city leaders. Thank you all for coming out. Corey Keith from Code Enforcement, Dave Wags of our parks, not Deputy Chief, but Chief Eric Smith, his chain was there to just discuss some of our rising issues with homelessness, code enforcement, and a multitude of things that impact all of our neighborhoods. So they answered questions. Everybody left feeling as if they had been heard, and that knowing that we have solutions and resources that we're going to focus into those areas of concern. On September 21st, I've been busy. We held the District 5 National Night kickoff at McCracken Field. Thank you to the venues, Alan Johnson, especially Craig Borkin and his team over there at Camping World Stadium, and Sean Jordan. They really assisted us with laying out that field. Families in the district was able to enjoy a night of fun. We had a strong, amazing presence from our Orlando Police Department, which included our Mounted Patrol, K-9 unit, SWAT, as well as our new police chief. Chief Eric Smith was there. Also, our new Chief Charles Salazar was there, and his beautiful wife. We was teaching him how to Dougie. No, we really wasn't. But no, it was a great time held there with New Image Youth Center. They stepped. Also, our poet laureate, Sean Welcome, came out. We did some K-9 demonstrations. Our men and women from Orlando Police Department grilled hot dogs and hamburgers for all the attendees. We had bounce houses, cotton candy, snow cones. It was a donation drive with clothes, toys, and books. And our theme, as the city theme is, we wanted to give crime and drugs a going away party, and we did just that. Special thank you to our liaison, Officer Richard Patterson, Cara Anderson, and Georgina Butler, along with Jacqueline Carcaham and Ariel Rodriguez from our office that composed all of this in 2 weeks. And I think with a 2-week window, you never would have known because of the partnership and collaboration. OUC provided, and thank you OUC, 600 bottles of water. My former aide, Tanika Bango, was able to bring on Jones High residents, alumni, and 50 students from Jones High to volunteer. And I think that's what we saw, and a special thanks to all of my center directors, Curtis Manning, Jamie Deshay, Carrie Blackshear, and Onika Bryant, and Josh Dawkins. They transported all the kids there to McCracken Field, and it was what we wanted to see. And thank you to Clerk Tiffany Moore Russell and Scott Randall's office that had representation. But what we look at is community policing, 21st century policing, where you saw the community engaging in a positive light, and the youth with law enforcement, and those children literally building that respect for the uniform, whether it was our OFD or our men and women in our police uniforms. And I just think that we are creating that ecosystem, not just for education and housing, what we're doing, but when we start talking about public safety and building the next cohort, especially in African American and Latino communities. I think it was a great look, and I felt real good to be a part of it. On 9/22, I was able to go to FAMU to be the keynote speaker at the Black Boardroom Leadership Institute. It's one of the many institutes that Leadership Orlando has underneath its umbrella. It is one of the largest community leadership programs in America, which is Leadership Orlando. And then we just talked about what it means to be on these service boards, talked about the meet and greet that Mayor Dyer is having to recruit more minority participants to sit on our boards, and how important it is. And I just talked about some of my experiences sitting on boards prior to becoming a commissioner, and when you can still go and serve and be your authentic self. And so that was some of the things that we talked about there. I met up again with Chief Smith over at the Lake Man Estates Neighborhood Association community meeting there at the American Legion. It was really engaging. Everyone had a great time. Thank you, Chief, for engaging the community and staying for the tough questions, and just letting them know that your main priority is community safety and violent crimes and drugs, and focusing on that and making sure that all of the city's protected, and that's your platform. So the last thing that I have, Mayor Dyer, is, which I'm supporting and great to see, and that is the Lake Orlando oh God, that's what happens when you're from Tavares, Florida, and you try to have a big word in front of you. The hydrologic and water quality evaluation project, which I think is much needed, and hopefully we can get more of those, Mayor, especially on the west side with some of our lakes over there. We're having some major issues with blue algae. And then this weekend over at Lake Larnedune, where we had some species of fish die, and they're doing some testing and things of that nature. So I do think we need to continue to focus on our lakes and making sure they're healthy. And the reason I'm not trying to segregate lakes, but I know most of the lakes, especially in District 5, I have 6 of them, and it's a huge feeding source for many of those families that might have, food insecurities, that they go to those lakes and actually truly fish and take it home and put it in the frying pan. So trying to make sure those lakes are still safe and healthy so families can eat out. Greatly appreciate it. And with that, I'll move the agenda forward.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. All in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and so the motion carries. Without objection, I'm going to recess the city council meeting to convene the CRA meeting. And we have 3 items. Number 1, Thomas.
Alrighty, thank you and good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. 3 items of new business today. The first is approving an award to Greater Works Property Services, LLC for downtown trash and debris services removal. On July 21st of this year, we received 2 responsive bids to a solicitation for trash and debris services. The Procurement and Contracts Division, along with DDB CRA staff, have evaluated those bids and recommend award to the lowest responsive bidder, which is Greater Works Property Services of Orlando, for these services. The initial contract is a 3-year term with an option for 2 additional 1-year terms. This is, however, an indefinite quantity contract, and actual expenditures will be determined by the amount of services needed and rendered. The expected expenditure for the first year is $198,000. If there are no questions, staff is requesting that the CRA approve and authorize the Chief Procurement Officer to execute the contract and subsequent renewals with Greater Works Property Services in the estimated annual amount of $198,000, subject to review and approval by the City Attorney's Office.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Number 2.
Thank you. Number 2 is approving a downtown commercial and residential building improvement program funding agreement between the Community Redevelopment Agency and 36 East Jackson LLC for 36 East Jackson. I'll remind you, Commissioners, that this program offers a 3-year interest-free deferred loan for qualified improvements for stabilization and or for the facade. 36 East Jackson owns the building located at that address at 36 East Jackson Street and has applied for assistance for signage, roofing, HVAC, and painting. The program, you'll recall, offers an opportunity for the CRA to match up to 50% with a not to exceed of $100,000 for qualified approvals. The owner's applicants this time have proposed improvements in an estimated total of $45,205. Therefore, they qualify for just over $22,602 in funding. And again, the Downtown Commercial and Residential Building Improvement Grant Review Committee has recommended approval. Staff is requesting that the CRA approve the Downtown Commercial and Residential Building Improvement Program funding agreement between the CRA and 36 East Jackson LLC, subject to the review and approval of the City Attorney's Office, and authorizing the Chair of the CRA and the Executive Director to execute such funding agreement.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries. And number 3.
Thank you. And finally, number 3 is another Commercial and Residential Building Improvement Program funding agreement, this time between the CRA and WPB Investment Group, LLC, for 532 West Church Street. Same terms apply, of course, again, 3-year deferred loan, interest-free. Up to 50% of the expenses with a not to exceed of $100,000 apply. WPB Investment Group LLC owns the building located at 532 West Church and has applied for assistance under the program for signage and roof work. Program provides, as I say, 50% and not to exceed $100,000. The owner's capital investment here is $75,350. Therefore, they qualify for $37,675. Again, the Grant Review Committee has convened and recommends approval, and staff is recommending that the CRA approve the Downtown Commercial and Residential Building Improvement Program funding agreement between the CRA and WPB Investment Group LLC for 532 West Church Street, subject to review and approval of the City Attorney's Office, and authorizing the Chair of the CRA and the Executive Director to execute such funding agreement.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thomas, any further business to come before the CRA?
There's none, Mayor. Thank you.
And without objection, we'll stand adjourned, and we will reconvene the City Council meeting. And that brings us to hearings, ordinances on second reading. Number 1, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance number 2022-41, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, rezoning certain land generally located south of West Princeton Street between Stanholme Way and Packing District Way and comprised of 9.78 acres of land, more or less, from planned development with the Wekiva Overlay District to planned development with the Wekiva Overlay District, providing a framework plan and special land development regulations of the planned development district, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's error, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Stewart, second by is it Commissioner Ortiz. I don't have any requests for public comment. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Number 2.
Ordinance number 2022-46, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, relating to the management of late-night uses, sound attenuation, and parking facilities within downtown Orlando, amending Chapter 5 of the Orlando City Code entitled Code Enforcement, amending Chapter 33 of the Orlando City Code entitled Alcoholic Beverages, amending Chapter 42 of the Orlando City Code entitled Noise, amending Chapter 61, Part 3 of the Land Development Code entitled Parking and Loading, amending Chapter 62, Part 5 of the Land Development Code entitled Design Standards in AC-3A District, amending Chapter 65, Part 5A of the Land Development Code entitled General Requirements, providing compliance schedule for parking facilities, providing legislative findings, and for codification, correction of scrivener's errors, severability, and an effective date.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. So this one has had a little bit of discussion over the course of the last several weeks, and as we saw at our public workshop this morning, we have made significant investments in our downtown to make sure it's a thriving economic hub. We've had a few safety issues in the late evenings on some of the weekends, so we've been trying to address those in a number of different ways. So today we have the second reading of an ordinance amendment to further enhance our visitor safety in downtown. I've asked David Barilla to take us through the proposed amendment.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, Council. Wanted to give you guys just a brief update on the context of the ordinance that we discussed several weeks ago at the meeting. For those individuals in the audience who may also be chiming in for the first time, I'll go through a brief overview to give you some context as to where we've come. But there's also been several changes as we've worked with the business community and the downtown community prior to our last, or post your last meeting, based on the discussion that we've had. So for context, this going here. Oop. Doesn't want to go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, as a reminder, and you all recall, back in 2016, we did something called a hospitality zone analysis. Ultimately, what that was we worked with a group called the Responsible Hospitality Institute, which is one of the leaders in the nighttime economy, as it is referred to. They have worked with over 70 cities throughout the country, and really kind of helped us work through a process where we had over 30 meetings with over 100 individuals of the community, 45 members of city staff, and 80 companies, where we really got a chance to roll up our sleeves, dig deep, and understand not only the various components of our nighttime economy, but also the importance that it had, and the ways to appropriately manage that as we continue to move forward and look to evolve downtown into a lot of the things that we talked about this morning. We heard a lot about talk about the neighborhood and seeing that develop in downtown Orlando. Some of the things that came out of that were the importance of what we then called the nighttime economy, and I think what's starting to evolve is the concept of the social economy. Ultimately, people want to socialize. We just came out of a period of time where we literally had to socially distance, and people are anxious to go ahead and get back and get integrated, meet their neighbors and their friends, and have that time to build those relationships again. We went through that process of evaluation and community engagement, which I described, and really ended on 3 or 4 different holistic concepts that we look to see moving forward. One of them was assuring safety, obviously, absolutely pointed, and to some extent brings this point to a head today. We've ultimately implemented a number of things on that context since. You all will recall we've enhanced our code enforcement team that focuses on downtown at night, which was also a specific component of that plan. Enhancing vibrancy, which is really taking all the components at night and looking at them and saying these are a component of what downtown is. You heard the mayor mention this morning that our residential has more than doubled over the time that he has been in office. And what that has done as people look to re-urbanize is when you're entertaining in a downtown environment, your establishment is oftentimes significantly smaller than a home in the suburbs. So your living room is no longer in your own establishment, but it is literally the community around you. It's the coffee shops, it's the bars, and the various types of things that you want to go ahead and entertain and meet the people that are important to you in your life. Enhancing vibrancy, we all know the investments that we've made in community venues and making sure downtown is basically a living room for all, and that we can all have an opportunity to come here and enjoy small things, but also those big events where we may even choose to invite people to come and join us from outside of the area. Planning for people. Some of the concepts which you've seen us ultimately look to more recently is looking to manage. We have in excess of 30,000 people in downtown throughout a multitude of venues, over 100 different venues at night, and operating that like an event. When we have various large events at Camping World Stadium or Amway Center, they're obviously one singular venue, but ultimately have a similar number of people. So you've seen us do that here recently with things like coordinated entry and the like. Also enhancing our ambassador program to make sure we can provide that hospitality component that Orlando is known for. And then obviously our ongoing commitment. Coming out of the hospitality zone analysis in 2016, we were one of the first cities to make the commitment and create a position known as our nighttime economy manager, which is now filled by Justin Eason, who sits behind me, formerly filled by Dominique Greco, who's over here on this side, and just shows that we continually have someone here inside City Hall that these businesses can reach out to, who understands what they're going through, and can also work with them throughout the various city processes that are needed. Recent events I'll talk to about in just a tad bit, but looking at some of the response that we've had post-events, I think most of us are aware of the challenges with safety at some points of the night. As you just heard me mention, we implemented a coordinated entry program originally focused on our large nights, the New Year's Eve, Halloween, and so on, 6 of them throughout the year. That has been implemented in different forms over the past 6 to 8 weeks in downtown Orlando. You heard me mention that our code enforcement team has been augmented and has a specific focus on our evening. We've enhanced our lighting downtown. We've added more than 305 fixtures throughout the core and upgraded those ones that were there with LED as well. The CRA has dedicated about approximately $1.8 million to a community policing and innovations fund, ultimately looking at enhancing our police force and other types of innovational components at night. We've installed, or I shouldn't say installed, you all have approved Safe and Sidewalk Cafe grants, which empower us to come alongside our businesses as they can ultimately seek to either get ID identification systems, metal detection systems, cameras, as well as uniform Sidewalk Cafe components throughout downtown, and the CRA will come alongside them and incentivize a significant component of that cost. And we have worked with the Orlando Police Department in camera enhancements. Over 40 cameras have been upgraded or installed throughout the area. Moving forward, the specific area that the code changes before you today are the downtown entertainment area. This is kind of the core of our entertainment district in downtown. You can see on the map, it is generally bounded by Colonial on the northern side, 408 on the southern side, Roslyn on the east, and then Huey on the west. As you heard me mention before, Placer is a system that we use that tracks cell phone data. This graph before you can look a little busy, but the two things, or three things I should say, that are really kind of apparent that I'll point you to are the purple dotted line, or the purple dashed line, the orange line, and then kind of the lighter blue line. Ultimately, this is how many people are downtown at night. And what you can kind of easily see is that the purple dashed line, which is current numbers, and 2021, which is the orange line, kind of consistently outperform the light blue line, which is 2019. So we all know 2020 is something that we can't really pay attention to. But you can see how those have continuously outpaced. Downtown is busy at night, is what that boils down to. And we're even busier than we've been in the past. So crime and recent events is obviously something that we can't shy away from. Most of us are aware of the challenges that we've had, dating sometimes back to last year with our Pine Street incident. We had incidents at Halloween, Wall Street and Orange Avenue, the terrible murder there, Court Street, Wall Street, and again, Court Street, unfortunately, since the last time I stood before you about this concept. And then from the bigger picture, which I think we have to kind of keep in mind as we continue to look at changes, especially in downtown, is what's ahead. You heard this morning throughout the workshop of kind of looking at the action steps ultimately that are looking to implement the Project DTO plan. You heard us talk a lot about making sure downtown is a place for all people, and that makes sure that ultimately people not only feel welcome but enjoy the time that they stay there, so ultimately they'll hopefully come back. Having a vital street system and mobility options so that people can choose a multitude of ways to either get here or even around while they are here. Being exceptional every day, so that's not only just in the big events that you might come to the Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts or Amway Center to enjoy a big night, but any night of the week where you may choose to come downtown and patronize a local business or get an unexpected cultural amenity that you might bump into and just make one of those significant moments that makes a memory. Having diverse districts and corridors, that's really the neighborhood concept, and being able to celebrate the uniqueness of our various districts and really providing a framework for them to thrive into the future with local businesses, both on the ground floor and a strong economic development component above. And then I think what it all culminates into is being the cultural hub of the region. And really being able to enhance all those big components, which I mentioned before, and knit those all together with a diverse framework of policies and businesses and ultimately experiences that really showcase all the uniqueness and diversity that we have in downtown Orlando. So the code changes, high level, to give you a brief update. They focus on three specific areas: surface parking lots, sound attenuation and outdoor speakers, and a new special use permit for after midnight uses. To start, our surface parking lot, as you will recall, this would amend current code in the Land Development Code to legalize current surface parking lots. That's not garages, this is surface parking lots within the downtown entertainment area. They would have to go through a planning official review to legalize their current parking. And some of the things that would ultimately come out of this are an annual CPTED review, that's crime prevention through environmental design, where they would ultimately work with our police department in making sure they have the appropriate lighting, that they're making a safe environment for their patrons, that when they're not open, it's barricaded, so it doesn't end up in a situation where it becomes a unannounced parking lot party or pregame party. Have lighting standards, like I mentioned before, to make sure they have a right amount of lighting. They have a security attendant until 3 a.m. or until the last person leaves, so that if there are situations, someone can call our OPD or our code enforcement to step in and make sure people are safe. In addition, other safety improvements like signage so people know who to call if there is an issue in the evening. The next component is sound attenuation. So this is kind of the context of the noise ordinance. The first of which is creating a planning approval process for outdoor speakers. So this is for permanent use outdoor speakers, that one would have on private property. What a venue would have to do is notify our planning department that they intended to continue to use their outdoor speakers, and then ultimately just have a sound attenuation report submitted just that certifies that they're able to operate within the current noise ordinance. It may look to them to require some different types of pieces that can help them do that along the way. And that's the second point there. Second is standards for sidewalk cafes, just that they kind of shut off at midnight on weekends and ultimately 10 o'clock on weekdays. Modification for indoor speakers so that they just be faced inward as they are intended to and not be pointed outward towards the street, obviously, so you can ultimately entertain your own patrons. And then, as we know, the expiration of the moratorium that ended just last month. An additional component of this, which I believe I briefly mentioned last time, but I think is also very important, is the piece that we call agent of change. And what that does is it ultimately requires new, like residential buildings or hospitality buildings that are bringing people to stay and ultimately sleep when they're here at those late hours of night. Just acknowledge that they're ultimately in an entertainment district, and by doing that, they may be required to provide some higher level of noise attenuation themselves, and ultimately, let's say dual pane windows or things of that nature, as an acknowledgement that they're moving into an area that may require them, in order to provide the best suited building for their patrons, additional investment on the front end. Some major updates since our last discussion, both as we worked with you all and various business owners. You heard some conversation last time about the concern that code enforcement or OPD would take decibel readings from internal to establishment. That was never the intent. You heard me explain the need for that specific component of code. But just so you are aware, that has been a change to be a little bit more clear. Now it reads that on public property, it will be measured at or beyond the real property line of the property generating the said noise, and if the sound is created out of doors, it will be measured at 50 feet from the source of the noise, providing that clear context as to where it will be, not internal to the venue. Another component about substantial improvement, the special use permit, which I briefly talked about, is only required for new businesses. There was some context in that language where it said, or if they were getting a permit, and we wanted to make sure that was clear, that it wouldn't be just if you're getting an electrical permit, now you're subject to these new requirements. So we clarified that with as a substantial improvement, which is contextually defined as if they're spending more than 50% of the assessed value on improving the business or the property, they would then just be looked at to ultimately go ahead and make the updates. Having permit to establish, we have a new permit to establish appropriate decibel levels for special events. You heard some context about outdoor or components, and this just places the opportunity so that for those big kind of, I say one time, but those significant outdoor events, businesses have the opportunity to apply for a decibel level that would exceed that for those outdoor events that are not internal. And there was another component, just kind of having some discretion, so to speak, on the issuance of the permit, and that was clarified. They were worried that staff had too much discretion, so the new proposal now reads that the planning official shall review and approve special use permits based on criteria. So I'm happy to address any questions of council.
Okay, and I will let you know that we do have 7 requests to speak, so if you could limit it to questions for now and discussion later. Commissioner Sheen, Commissioner Gray, Commissioner Hill.
No questions now?
Questions now.
Oh, questions now, okay. I was downtown Saturday night, and I wasn't impressed, let's put it that way. I was at an event, nice event, and I was frightened walking back, and I've never felt that in downtown Orlando before. Now, there was very much a feeling of lawlessness. Everybody was all over the street. They were clearly intoxicated, and it was at 10 o'clock at night. There was screaming. There was this horrible screaming, and it ended up being preachers at the corner of, these mean preachers at the corner of Church and Orange, and everybody else seemed to be turning up their volume to try to drown out these mean preachers that were screaming on these megaphones horrible things. And I think what happened was, it was just that that set the tone for this ease, and everybody just started feeling bad from the minute they walked into downtown. As I got closer to where the preachers were, they were just awful. And I think we have got to enforce the rules that we have. Public intoxication, people screaming into megaphones, which I know our noise ordinances address. And I don't understand why we keep coming up with plans and we're not enforcing the rules. So I don't know if I've got to go personally downtown and call the police on the mean preachers, because they're a problem, you know? And they are so, you could hear the mean preachers from 6 blocks away. So I was talking to some of the folks outside and I said, are you guys turning your speakers up to, yeah, we got to drown out that foolishness. So that's part of the problem, which we have not addressed, is the mean preachers. And they have every right to do their preaching, but not in a megaphone that you can hear 6 blocks away. That's ridiculous. I don't understand why we're not doing something about that. And it sets a bad precedent. I don't understand why we're not doing something about the public intoxication, because if people are that loaded walking around downtown, we have to do something. I mean, you can't just be that intoxicated walking around at 10 o'clock at night. I've heard some other concerns from restaurant owners that they've been told that some of the bars are telling them if they're extra loud, that they'll just have the restaurants move out, which is what they want them to do. So I think that's a concern that we need to address, is that the bar owners want to run off the restaurant owners, which is we want a mix of uses. We don't just want bars alone. So the restaurant owners shouldn't feel that they're being, you know, basically run out of town, so to speak. And so these are just some of the things that I experienced and I guess not a question, but these are just some of the things that I experienced just on Friday night alone. So I guess I will, you know, save some of the other things that have been happening too, but I just want to say that, you know, I understand what we're trying to do here, but if we're not enforcing the rules that we already have, and we have a situation where it's so lawless that I'm a city commissioner, and I mean, I like to walk around by myself at night. I shouldn't feel like I should have to have a security detail just to walk back to my car from an event in downtown. We have a problem, and we need to address it. And we can't pretend it doesn't, and we can't keep studying it and hiring people and, you know, and nothing ever happens. We've got to do something because it's not safe, you know? And I don't know what the answer is, but I know my question to you is, what are we going to do to do something about this lawless environment, because it's not cool.
So we're starting with, well, this is another step, is this ordinance, but there are additional things to come.
Okay, but yeah, but it was bad, Mayor. You know, I mean, I like I say, I've been out in a while, but it was awful on Saturday night, and I have some other concerns. You know that. I'll just go ahead. You know, I've heard there's been a lot more assaults on LGBTQ people. They don't feel comfortable coming downtown anymore because there's been extra assaults on them. And there was an event on Friday night I'm going to be looking into, and I hope the Hospitality Alliance will look into this too, because this is ridiculous. This cannot be happening. This cannot be something that we allow in our downtown. As owners of bars, we cannot allow assaults on people because of who they are. It's completely unacceptable. And these parking garages, I know some of these situations are happening in the parking garages, and as I walked by some of the parking garages on Saturday night, there were parties in the parking garages. So I don't know what the garages themselves, the private garages, are doing with their security, but there does not seem to be much security happening in the private garages, and that needs to be another part that we kind of look at, because you can see the parties happening in the garages themselves as you're walking around downtown. And as far as the surface lots, that I've also heard a lot of feedback that the surface lots are where people are congregating and partying, and I know y'all going to reach out to some of the individual lots that I brought up too. But these are all, you know, things that are, you know, dovetailing into some of the problems that we're having. But like I say, I hadn't been out in a while, but Saturday night was kind of scary, and I was at an event at the City Arts, and you know, we've got to do something.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gray?
Thank you, Mayor, and I think Commissioner Sheehan's on it. But David, look, I know these are short-term solutions while you work on a longer-term problem. I got that, and we're not going to turn it around in a week or two, so we've got some things to work on. But I'm kind of dovetailing what Commissioner Sheehan's concerns were. Mine are the same. One is noise. Help me, yes, I understand the concept of entertainment, but you mentioned we should be kind of disclosing to residential owners that they might want to do double pane windows, et cetera. What's the concept that somebody else's noise should have an impact on me? No different than I have the right to turn my stereo up loud, open my windows, and bother my neighbor in the suburbs. So I'd like you to, with your group, as you go through that, I'm still struggling with this concept of loud noise should impact or have a negative impact on residents. If that's the case, then we might think about having a separate entertainment district away from residential, because certainly I don't think that helps encourage residents to move downtown if they say, okay, as long as I can get through 2 o'clock, then I can go to bed. So, but the bigger one, I think Commissioner Sheehan is right, and that is one of enforcement. Because I think the challenge for me is if you don't consistently enforce the rules, then people start taking advantage. And when they see somebody taking advantage, then human nature is, if they're getting away with it, I'm going to do it too. So the question, there is a question in here, how many enforcement people, I guess code enforcement, are we expecting to have downtown to consistently apply these new rules you're asking us to adopt?
Sure. So last year, after our initial meeting in May, when the CRA set aside the initial allocation, which was $800,000 for our community policing innovations, at that time, we made our initial commitment to augment our code enforcement department with 2 additional full-time code enforcement officers that focus on just the PM hours in downtown. Coming up in this next budget year, which is now just a week away, we've worked with our code enforcement to effectively double that, adding an additional officer as well as a supervisor to that team. So there's a whole team of 4 now that will be dedicated, Commissioner, to the PM hours in downtown at night that the CRA will be helping to ensure that coverage is there.
Okay, so you're comfortable that 3 officers and a supervisor can adequately and consistently monitor plus or minus 100 bars?
Based on our communications, with Corey and our code enforcement department, that was what we felt was appropriate and feasible in order to do that and provide the appropriate coverage of downtown at night.
Okay. Again, I know it's a short-term solution, but something tells me that may not be enough to adequately address the issue. But, okay, Mayor, thank you for letting me ask David.
Sure. Commissioner Hale?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Dave, for your presentation. You know, when we start talking about our downtown, all of downtown don't have all bad players. There's some really upstanding businesses downtown that has taken a brunt hit because of some of the bad players. I'm still in support that I don't think that noise kill people too. I was downtown on Saturday also, and I saw a different downtown. So it depends on what block you're on downtown, what establishment, what street you're on downtown. Place where I was, it was a nice gathering, great people socializing, being respectful, noise level at a minimum, following the rules, right? So I think as we continue to proceed, we need to not put everybody under the big tent, right? Truly, what is sidewalk cafes, and what is a bar? What is a restaurant, a club? So those type of things, I think we have to also, as we move forward, kind of dissect this thing, and certain rules and noise should apply at certain things. Right now, everybody's falling underneath the same category, and it's just not, I think, reasonable, but we have to do something, as Mayor Dyer stated.
That one we're addressing. So there's an ordinance amendment that Brooke or David, it's been through MPB already, right?
That's correct. Last week it went to MPB, Commissioner and Mayor, because you're absolutely right, Commissioner. The way the code currently treats food and beverage businesses, whether you be a bar or a restaurant, is the same. And so there's definitions moving forward that were approved by MPB to just, adequately address those and define how they operate differently and ultimately how the appropriate way for them to be regulated.
Okay, so I look forward to hear more about those. Thank you. That was my concern.
Okay, let's move on to testimony. So I have, Madam Clerk, I have 7 or any more? Okay. So we'll go Sean Rader, Doug Taylor, Dominique, and then Greg Reynolds. First 4 up.
Mayor Dyer, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Sean Rader, and I live at 415 East Pine Street in the Paramount Building with the Publix on the first floor, right across from Lake Eola Park. I'm a proud resident of Orlando. My family moved here in 1961. Been proud to see the leadership the city has had and the growth we've had. But I do have some concerns, and I'm addressing an issue that is sort of collateral to what you're discussing today, simply because we have some real problems in the area of Central and Lake, which falls outside the district you're talking about. And it's really impacting the quality of life and safety of the people in the high rises in my area. The first problem we have is a group of protesters that gather every Friday and Saturday night across from the Waverly and yell and chant and blow horns to the point where it's impossible to sleep. They do it at least until midnight. It's very intrusive. I understand noise doesn't kill anybody, but if I can't even drown the noise with turning my TV up, it is impacting the quality of life. And my sister visited recently, and it scared her when we were walking around the park. She said she didn't feel safe there. We call 911 consistently. We've met with police officers. OPD says their hands are tied because the group claims First Amendment rights. I don't care what they're saying or what their beliefs are, but they can do it at a decibel level that doesn't reach the top floors of the Paramount and the Waverly. We call 911 and they tell us they'll send an officer out, but they encourage us to keep calling because they say if we do that, maybe the city will do something, and we're certainly not the only ones that complain. My suggestion to legal at the city is I believe there's a new state ordinance coming into effect October 1st, which bans protest in residential areas, and certainly that corner should be residential. If a group wants to do that, send them over to the pagoda on the other side of the lake. The next problem is the NASCAR racing that goes on every Friday and Saturday night, usually from midnight to 3, down Central from Eola to Roslyn, down Roslyn from Central to Robinson, and across from Robinson. And the loud music. I know there's a new state statute says you shouldn't hear music from cars. And then finally, the panhandling that goes on. I've had people follow me into Publix. I've had several people say they feel unsafe because they're very aggressive and they yell. And I want to see my city proud. I want visitors to feel safe and experience a city beautiful the way it should be. Thank you for letting me have my say.
Thank you, Sean, and we will take a look at, with the new ordinance, whether we can apply that across the street on residential or not. So that could be a tool that we can use, but thanks for reminding us about that. Doug, I see you looking perplexed, so if you want to waive your time and I'll go on to Dominique. I think maybe I heard you wanted to.
Yes, I withdrew my name, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Then we'll go on to Dominique.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, Commissioners. On behalf of the Orlando Hospitality Alliance, a one-year-old merchants association with 200 business members now from downtown and throughout the greater Orlando area, we appreciate the efforts of city staff over the last several months as we've considered the future of downtown Orlando. I didn't state my name and address. I'm going to go back for it. Dominique Greco, 100 East Pine Street, Orlando, Florida. The details of today's proposed policy package call for both current and future stakeholders to contribute to the safety and viability of our downtown in real and meaningful ways. We believe your favorable vote today supports the efforts of many to create a foundation on which future downtown can stand. OHA's input has been largely in efforts to ensure the voices of the local and social stakeholders are not only heard but understood. Local and social is what we affectionately call Orlando's locally owned and operated eating, drinking, dining, dancing, entertainment, and creative spaces. This is why the Orlando Hospitality Alliance exists, so that local policymakers can have a direct line of communication to this very important segment of the greater hospitality and tourism industry. We very much look forward to continuing to be a resource for the city of Orlando in the future. In closing, the Orlando Hospitality Alliance supports the codification of 22-46. We appreciate the time that city staff has taken to collaborate with OHA in recent months, and we look forward to continuing down the road of good partnership with the city of Orlando.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Greg Reynolds, followed by Steve Garrity, Dr. Eric Mason, and then Kimberly Stewart.
Commissioners and Mayor, appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'd like to second what Commissioner Sheehan colorfully presented. I'm Greg Reynolds at 322 East Central Boulevard in the Waverly. And yes, Sean, we get to hear all that happens as you described as well. But I'm here to talk about this, and I appreciate the opportunity. I've lived downtown since 2004 and frequented the social scene in my younger years a lot more than I did here have done frequently recently. And I'd like to say that times have changed. So I do go downtown at random times socially with friends, and then from time to time I drive through it. And yes, again, times have changed. It seems like a lot of energy is happening downtown. Then when I used to go downtown, it just seems kind of like what Commissioner Sheehan said. It's kind of a, I don't want to say free-for-all, but it just appears to be, a good word for it's a lot of energy happening down there. And I would just like to say that I believe that safety and anything that the city can do to be had down there in a reasonable way is a good thing to happen. The actions taken by city appeared to be sensible and reasonable. I've read through the overview and policy and proposals that they seem to be reasonable. And as a resident and a patron perspective, I don't disagree with any of the increased safety in parking lots. That just seems like common sense. Increased noise ordinance for loud outside music. I love that part, being a resident downtown. And increased security for establishments that are open after 12 o'clock. That just seems like a lot of common sense. And I live and work and play downtown. I appreciate the policies and procedures that the staff is proposing and working with, it appears, with your downtown establishments. I truly believe that there are a lot of residents that would applaud this reasonable approach. I support this policy and procedure and hope that the City of Orlando Council implements them soon. As everyone knows, that policies can change and be worked through if there's any issues with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Steve Garrity, Dr. Eric Mason, and Kimberly Stewart.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. I'm Steve Garrity with Highwoods Properties, 201 East Pine Street in downtown Orlando. Highwoods supports the policy proposals. As a New York Stock Exchange public company, long-term Orlando investor, and one of the largest tax contributors serving downtown Orlando community, Highwoods provides downtown Orlando Class A office and retail space with well-lit and well-managed parking facilities. Highwoods has encouraged that downtown Orlando continues to be a wonderful place for all to invest, and we are very excited to see that City Beautiful has become a 24-hour location for all to enjoy. The city has more dimension with recent significant increase in residents living, working, and playing in downtown Orlando. Safety, noise level, reducing vandalism, enhancing public area cleanliness are important matters that if we continue to address, the downtown experience will be dramatically improved for all to enjoy. We have consistently noticed that most of these concerning issues occur after midnight throughout the early mornings and appear to be related to late-night alcohol-related establishments that aren't enforced or ticketed. So again, Highwood supports this proposal and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Eric Mason.
Good afternoon, and thank you guys so much for having me. I'm extremely grateful. I've gotten to know most of you guys, fortunately not in my professional life, and I apologize for my dress. I did get a duck away from work for this with the approval of my medical director, ORMC, because this is important, guys. A lot of the things that David put up here, they kind of show the headliners, don't touch it. I see and I treat the assault victims recurrently every weekend when I work downtown. I tend to work because I live downtown and I can't sleep till about 2 or 3, even with noise canceling headphones, and I do have triple pane windows and also a brick wall. The base still makes it through. There's no way to warn people enough for this. You know, and I think that not everybody is a bad guy in this. I do get it. Nightlife itself is not the enemy, but anything can get out of balance. And especially when it extends past the property lines of these venues. And it impacts lives that I'm the one that I talk to the family members and explain why when they ask why. And I say, you know, I live downtown. I've called the police. I've called them several times when there's been noise ordinances. What I hear is, that's code enforcement. We'll send an officer. We'll have them take a look at it. Nothing really changes. I think this has already been touched on, so I'm not going to belabor the point. Orlando has so much potential, man. I love this city. And I've been in public health and worked in emergency medicine for 35 years, 15 of it here at Orlando, right downtown. I was there when pulses happened. I've been there. I've seen many of the people you probably know in their worst day. I do the absolute best I can. Orlando's leaders, I think, are working on the best you can, and God knows you guys work. I mean, District 5, man, the work continues. I go to these events. The problem is when the rubber hits the road on any kind of enforcement, that's where we lose traction. And the same officers that are on the street, I see professionally at work frequently as they're taking reports of assaults and everything else. And I'm like, guys, ain't there something we can do? And they say our hands are tied. So my hope and plea is that the work continues. There's no reason that the noise needs to impact other individuals when it can be inside. And I'm not against outdoor events, but we have stadiums. We have many indoor venues that really could control and limit access to firearms. They sit tacit so frequently. The police officers I talk to work hard. They feel their hands are tied. And as a resident, I feel the same. And on behalf of a good number of emergency medicine staff that work so hard, man, we're just tired of seeing it, and it's got to change. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for taking time out of your work schedule to come down and talk to us.
My pleasure. Thank you all for everything you do, truly.
And Kimberly Stewart.
Good morning, all, or good afternoon, I should say, Mayor, City Commissioners. I have a unique perspective. As I see
Kimberly, just do your name and address for us.
I'm sorry, Kimberly Stewart. I own a business in Creative Village at 513 North Paramore Avenue. I have a unique perspective as I see the proposed measures from several different points of view. First, as a former owner of a nightlife venue in downtown Orlando. Second, as a resident of downtown Orlando for over 13 years. And finally, as a business owner in Creative Village. As downtown Orlando continues to evolve as a destination and cultural epicenter, I think it's important that we all do everything that we can to ensure that all patrons are safe at all times. A safe, vibrant downtown helps all stakeholders, visitors, residents, business owners, as it is an integral part of the Central Florida community and economy. The measures being proposed are necessary for downtown Orlando to realize its potential and the vision we all have for it. We all want a vibrant, safe downtown Orlando. But we all have to keep in mind that this step is one of many that will need it to be addressed to address the problems that are pervasive in downtown Orlando. There is not a one-size-fits-all solution, and there are various different communities within downtown that will require different measures to address their issue. I agree that rules without enforcement lead to lawlessness, But future iterations of these plans will have to address how we effectively enforce these rules and how we manage these new measures. I think we can all agree that the world is a much different place, than it was just a few short years ago. It will require the cooperation of all the stakeholders to create measures that enforce the rules and continue to work together as downtown Orlando evolves. So I think this is a step in the right direction, but I think it's important that we all understand that it's just the beginning. That there will need to be more things done after this. It will be incumbent on leaders to enforce the measures, communicate openly with current business owners. I'm happy to see that one of the provisions does provide a grandfather clause for current business owners. I'm happy to see that the parking lot measures will help increase safety and visibility in areas that typically aren't very safe and that aren't typically manned, because I think that's the biggest issue. While I'm anxious to see the enforcement of the noise ordinance, I believe it will help manage outside noise and disturbances and will allow law enforcement to act swiftly and decisively if there are any problems. And then in conclusion, I support 2022-46 as I feel that our leaders are moving in the right direction.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, those are all the cards I have. Do you have any more? Okay, discussion. We get it out during the questioning, for the most part. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, so the motion carries. And I want to thank everybody that took time out of their day to come participate and testify, and those of you that decided to waive your time as well. Okay, Madam Clerk, number 3.
Ordinance number 2022-53, an ordinance of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending and restating the land development regulations of the Lake Nona Planned Development Zoning District relating to certain land generally located north of the Orange-Osceola County line, south of Dodd Road, east of Boggy Creek Road, and west of Narcoossee Road, and comprised of 9,044.20 acres of land, more or less, providing for amendment of the city's official zoning map, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's error, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
Move to adopt.
Motion by Commissioner Gray, second by Commissioner Ortiz. Is there, I don't have any cards, Madam Clerk.
No speakers,
Commissioner
Mayor.
Gray.
Mayor, if I could, just briefly to kind of highlight this amended PD, because I think it's important to not only our folks at Tavistock, but certainly the city. And I share these comments not to take any credit for it, because believe me, I try my best to stay out of the way and let our friends at Tavistock as well as our staff work through this. But I want to share some highlights of this PD just so our residents understand the impact of what happens down in Lake Nona. You know, the original PD for Lake Nona was done some 25 years ago. And we use the term Lake Nona. The property that this encumbers and talks about with Tavistock is 17 square miles and 9,000 acres, which is all within the city of Orlando, and provides us quite a tax base. But here's some of the highlights of this amended PD. This will allow up to 20,000 residential units, 3,600 hotel rooms, and up to 25 million square feet of commercial space. Now, that's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. It's a long-term plan. As I said, the original PD was some 25 years ago, which is also a highlight. This is a partner that we have at the City of Orlando that has been able to handle the ups and downs of the recession and continued to make Lake Nona what it is today, which by a lot of accounts is one of the top 10, 20, pick a number, developments in the entire country. And we have it right here in Southeast Orlando. And in return for these entitlement upgrades, here's what Tavistock's agreed to do. They're going to donate a school site. They're going to donate a location for a fire station. They're giving us 15 acres for another park, which will be the third park or land for the third park that they've contributed. 25% of the space included in these entitlements will be open space. They have paid for all of the infrastructure for complete reclaimed water throughout the development, which is important to our sustainability efforts. Included in this are new bike trails to continue what they've already done, transit covers to include bike racks, etc., for those that want to use our mass transit. They're adhering to the Greenworks Community Action Plan that we've developed. They've agreed to a prohibition against all kind of undesirable uses, which are things such as pawn shops and payday business agencies and bail bond type things. And the main thing I want to emphasize, because it's been talked about here, of those residential units, through the efforts of Tavistock and our planning staff working together, they have agreed to do up to 10% of their new residential units will be offered to as affordable units at 80% of the AMI, which is consistent with what we did in Rose Arts. So again, I preach up here a lot, let's be consistent so that whether you're developing in the northeast part of the city or you're developing in the southeast part, northwest part of the city or southeast, we're looking at things the same way. So in this PD, Tavistock's agreeing that they will do 10% at 80% AMI, and that'll amount to somewhere around 700 to 750 new units. Again, not tomorrow, but over time. So, Mayor, I appreciate you letting me share some of this stuff, but I just wanted to emphasize we have some real key partners, but I think the folks at Tavistock continue to be a key component of our city. And when you look at all this, it provides quite a tax base for us as a city. And I just wanted to take a second to thank Julie Salvo of Tavistock and her team, and also Brooke and Elizabeth Dang for their team for the efforts, because this was a Herculean effort to get this one done. So I just wanted to say congratulations. And
Thank you, Commissioner Gray.
Yep.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes, I just want to also thank you for your leadership. You know, you just warmed my heart when you said that, and leading the way over there in Lake Nona. So,
well, thanks. It's the right thing to do. Tavistock believes it. We believe it. So we'll continue to push that way. That's all I have, Mayor.
Kumbaya.
Yeah, there we go.
Thanks for highlighting that. In all seriousness, Commissioner Gray, a lot of great stuff, and that expands, now will be down all the way to the county line when this is developed.
Yep.
Okay, number 4.
Let's vote on that one, Mayor.
Oh, yeah.
I've moved the
After all
motion.
Let's see, we've had a motion and a second. Further discussion, hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and so the motion carries. Now, number 4.
Ordinance number 2022-56, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, relating to development review committees, amending Chapter 65, Part 1 of the Land Development Code to revise and combine the development review committees, amending Chapters 62, 64, 65, and 68 Land Development Code to update references to a single development review committee, amending Chapter 2, Article 32 of the Orlando City Code to update references to a single development review committee, providing legislative findings and for implementation, codification, correction of scrivener's error, severability, and an effective date.
so move.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. I don't have any cards. Is there a discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Number 5.
Ordinance number 2022-57, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, relating to administrative official determinations, amending Chapter 65, Part 2 of the Land Development Code entitled Zoning Applications and Procedures, providing legislative findings and for codification, correction of scrivener's error, severability, and an effective date.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Burns. Again, I have no request for public testimony, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. That brings us to ordinances on first reading. So let's start with number 1.
Ordinance number 2022-58, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending Chapter 18A Parks and Outdoor Public Assemblies of the Code of the City of Orlando by amending Section 18A.02 to add 4 new parks, providing for codification, severability, correction of scrivener's error, and an effective date.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Burns, second by Commissioner Hill. I have no request for public testimony, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. And number 2.
Ordinance number 2022-59, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending the city's adopted growth management plan by updating figure CI-14 to be entitled City of Orlando 2022-2027 Capital Improvements Element Capital Improvement Fund Schedule, amending policy 2.2.30 in the Capital Improvements Element, providing for correction of scrivener's error and an effective date.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. I don't have any requests for testimony, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. That is the conclusion of our official business. Ed, could you get us prepared for general appearance, please?